Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from John and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rewind-A-Dynamite. It is John Pollock alongside Wai Ting, coming off of tonight's edition of Dynamite from Indiana. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah. How about yourself?
Great. Wonderful.
Okay. All right. I'm happy to hear it. Are you telling the truth or no?
I don't know.
That's okay.
It's just a day.
We don't have to even ask how are you doing at the beginning of these shows. You know,
Let's just skip it.
Yeah,
Unless you really care. I don't think you do.
I do care. I don't know if you care to tell the world. You know, like if you're actually having like how your day's been going. But I'm giving you the floor if you choose to.
Have you ever seen the movie The Perfect Storm? When they're out to sea and there's a crazy tidal wave that's coming at them. That's most of my days. That's how I wake up. That's how I feel most days until like midnight, and then it ends.
Well, what happened today?
Everything happens. Everything happens every day, and it's just you hope to not be shipwrecked by the end of the day. Everything gets thrown at you, and you do your best. That's life. That's my life every single day. Way.
Is there something that could be changed to make things easier for you?
I'm going to meditate.
Okay.
Would that be a good idea?
Yeah, but maybe it wouldn't hurt. I mean, do you even have time to meditate? It sounds like that. Maybe that's the issue.
No, I definitely don't. So
maybe it's time to just cut back on certain things.
I might. Yeah, I might.
Yeah.
The problem is figuring out like what you cut out. That's the difficult part.
Well, maybe we'll have an off-air discussion, or maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Oh, what's tomorrow?
It's the latest edition of Talk, where we dive deeper into these topics that feel kind of awkward to bring up at the beginning of a AEW Dynamite review. But on Talk, I guess we could really talk about anything, including maybe what might be ailing you, John.
You know what we should do? We should drive out into the country and go into like a forest or something, and let's do an edition of Listen.
And just listen to
ambient
nature?
Sound. We'll sit next to each other. We'll let a mic go, and we'll just listen.
Sure. Okay, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Like
have you ever heard of those retreats where people go away and they don't talk for an extended period of time?
Oh yeah.
I think I'd excel at that. I think I would be so good at that.
I would be fascinated to know how you would enjoy something like that. Yeah.
To be in a situation where not only is there no pressure to talk to people, but it's mandatory not to.
Yeah.
If that was an Olympic sport, I think I'd be Carl Lewis.
Says the guy who talks for a living. That's very interesting. But the point isn't just to not talk; it's to actually meditate. And
I think it would be. I think there would be plenty of benefits to it. Just in your mind, I would take a hammer to my phone and at the beginning of it.
Have you tried
taking a hammer
meditation?
To my phone? No, meditation. No, I have not. Not really.
Why don't you take like 15 minutes and try it this week? I haven't done it.
How about we do it for 15 minutes right now? Let's scare every Dynamite listener away. Let's just get down to the nitty gritty, like the 5 people that would last 15 minutes.
Like I'd be down, sure. Like I don't care.
I'm worried about too many people listening. We need to narrow it down.
Yeah, maybe at some point.
The sickos. That's what we need to grind this down to.
We'll call Jordan Goodman to lead. Maybe a live meditation for us, and we could do one on an episode of something. But I would just be curious because I think you'd find it a big challenge. Like I would find it a big challenge to just shut your brain off and not think about anything. You know, that's really I think the hard part. That's the work.
Yeah, right? I mean, it would be very hard to hit the off switch.
It sounds like you might need to once in a while.
Maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, I need to once in a while.
It's great. There's physical health, and then there's mental exercises. I think we could all participate more. That's what I want to watch. The mental exercise Olympics. Imagine that, where we just watch people.
The mental health Olympics.
That would be fun to watch, wouldn't it?
Well, what would that entail?
Maybe it'd just be more so like psychological tasks, like you see on Survivor, where you've just got to do things like mundane things, but for long periods of time, like balancing a teacup on a flat platform and hold it up.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
How long could you do that? Not out of just the lack of strength that you would have over time, but the mental fortitude to stay still and do this task for what could be hours.
Mm-hmm. I mean, somebody out there would be watching, I'm sure. Yeah.
The number is going up way. People are not tuning out of this. That's what concerns me. Yeah. All right. Well, there you go, everyone. Keep fit and have fun from the body break duo. That is John Pollock and Wai Ting, with all due respect to Hal Johnson and Joanne McLeod.
Legends. Yes.
Legends in their own right. Let's get into today's news. We're going to start off with Brandon Thurston. He has a report up at Post Wrestling. So earlier this week, we had we had another report from Brandon about the WWE seeking a pause in the Ring Boy lawsuit. Well, in a very quick turnaround, a judge has granted a pause in this case. The Ring Boy suit, it was filed in October, and it was filed in Maryland primarily because of the Child Victims Act that was passed into law last year in Maryland, and allowing for people to sue without any time limits when it comes to those that have been victims of sexual abuse. And so right now there is a contention over this Child Victims Act, and the Supreme Court of Maryland is going to rule on the constitutionality of this Child Victims Act sometime by next August. So that has placed this Ring Boy suit essentially in a pause until that decision is rendered. So we could have really no movement on this case. And you can take an example of the Janelle Grant case, since it was placed on pause back in the spring, and how, this is essentially as it's described, on pause. And if it is deemed that this is not constitutional, and this Child Victims Act is somehow repealed or turned down by this Supreme Court in Maryland, it is possible this case could go away and there's no avenue for them to seek. So this is very noteworthy, and it seems like there's going to be quite a wait now until next summer, whenever this decision is rendered. Do you think, Wai, I mean, I know that you are a political junkie, and there's been a lot of, when it comes to the appointments by Donald Trump for his cabinet, this Ring Boy lawsuit is certainly attached to Linda McMahon, and she is considered one of the glowing candidates with only a Ring Boy lawsuit attached to them in comparison to others.
Yeah.
Do you feel that a bit of a hold on this case will just further separate this in terms of Linda McMahon, because she has gotten some bad press as a result of this? Not enough that I think it's going to affect her confirmation, but does this kind of put this onto the back burner and is going to be out of the political discourse attached to Linda McMahon?
More so than I think it already has. I don't think it's really been much attached to her at all. If anything, the knock on her is just simply the fact that she's a part of this ridiculous, industry known as professional wrestling. Cue the clip of her, with, I don't know, Trish Stratus, or her with Kane. And it's she really, it's the wrestling attachment that's more of the punchline for, your pundits than I think even something that's a bit more in depth.
Which are the silliest arguments to, if you want to be against Linda McMahon, by all means, but to use the content of WWE programming is
it's an easy haha, look at that wrestling stuff, in the mainstream, and whatever. But like you mentioned, John, she on the list of this sort of roster, she feels one of the more, I don't know, innocent candidates, or at least somebody who's maybe not a big enough target for maybe most people to even dig into.
No, I don't think she's going to run into any friction of getting appointed. But anyway, that is the latest on that case. You can read the story up at postwrestling.com from Brandon Thurston.
Yeah. Now, is there like another avenue for this lawsuit to find some form of like, I don't know, justice or like, you know, the people that are that are trying to represent the Ring Boys, for instance? Can they go the civil route? Can they do other things like that?
I mean, this was going to be a civil suit, so you know, part of it, we would have to like speak with their legal team, but like part of it was like, where else would they have jurisdiction, and also that the statute of limitations would allow them to do so. That's why Maryland, like this Child Victims Act, allowed them this avenue, and the reason they went with Maryland.
So Rita Chatterton, for instance, that was based in New York, right?
And there was a specific period of time that it was essentially they could go back, and that was just a time frame of where they were relaxing it so they could go back. Like that was essentially, I don't want to call it a loophole, but it was essentially a period that you did not have to be harnessed by the statute of limitations. So I would be curious from the legal representation if they are planning any alternate avenues, if there are any to speak of. Like certainly this has been, the Child Victims Act is something that has been discussed at this, you know, Supreme Court of Maryland was going to be deciding upon. So this is not a new revelation either. Like this has been in the works for some time, that this decision would be something presented and that will have to be ruled upon. On a lighter note, WWE and Netflix held an event in LA on Tuesday to start the big promotion for the launch on January the 6th. Some of the news and notes coming out of it, which we spoke about at a bit more length on today's Pollock and Thurston show. But we are going to have advertiser-friendly programming on WWE Raw on Netflix. Nick Khan disputing any online chatter that it's going to get edgier. No, it's family-friendly, multi-generational, advertiser-friendly programming, which should be the new signature at the start of the show, with Mark Shapiro voicing the new intro for Raw. He also expects a more global flair because of countries outside of the U.S. that are important to them, important to Netflix, indicating you're going to see more celebrities involved, and probably as a sign of what we've seen with the European dates they've announced in the lead up to WrestleMania, probably a lot more international editions of the show, and giving you that global scope, which was, you know, that's part of this whole Netflix. It's not just Raw going to Netflix in the US, but on an international level, Netflix being the primary platform as well. It makes a lot of sense for what they're trying to do. Yeah,
really. I think the more we see this relationship form as it's about to premiere, the more I think we perhaps realize that we weren't necessarily thinking at levels like this, or at least the discussion about, you know, WWE's distribution deals weren't necessarily at the level of thinking about like international expansion. You know, where I think understandably, like the discussion largely was about like who's going to pay the most money. The choice to go to Netflix, I mean, represents a much bigger topic than just who's going to pay the most money. It's what's going to grow your business the most, you know, on an international scale for decades to come. And I mean, it tells you the power of Netflix compared to like any other streamer that's out there, and it tells you maybe about the strategy of the WWE and how big of a picture they're really aiming for, not just conquering one part of the world, but perhaps the entire world.
Are you expecting major changes from the get-go in terms of whether it's presentation, whether it's like obviously this is going to be a major this is going to be a big centerpiece for Netflix in terms of like ad-friendly programming, that we're going to see a lot of advertising embedded. And I think the WWE audience has been conditioned to that in this TKO era. And I'm sure they're going to be coming up with a lot of unique ways to, beyond just like the LED screens, interesting ways to embed this. Like, are you going to see that day one? Do you see that as an evolutionary process that Raw on January 6th may be looking very different than Raw a year from now on Netflix?
I expect to it's a change, you know, as technologies increase and as maybe they get a better sense of like what their advertising partners want, what they're technologically capable of. But I think from day one, you're going to see a place for ads, you know, whether it be like a similar structure to what they currently do for the PLEs, where maybe ad-free tiered members get like video packages, you know, and you get to see more of like, I don't know, American Alpha selling t-shirts or something like that, or video packages just kind of like generically promoting, you know, X wrestler, or just like straight up like advertising in it. I don't know, I'm not really sure, but it's one of the very curious things about it. If listen to all the conversation, it's strictly about making money. And Netflix, with their huge investment, is certainly looking to monetize every single second of the show. So I expect ads from day one. Yeah.
I'm sure, though, it will be subtle and elegant, of course.
We'll see.
Insertion.
Yeah, we'll see.
Buy more stuff. The last thing is, you know, they did talk about, you know, coming out of the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight, the buffering issues. Certainly no one is expecting that level of volume for Raw. But just in the wake of that fight, how big it was, is your expectation for the audience that is going to be watching Raw? Is it larger coming out of that fight than maybe you expected for that January 6th show, just to start? Like, that is going to be the one that everyone's tuning in, even if you're not going to be sticking around for most weeks. That first episode, just to see what it looks like on Netflix, there's going to be so much curiosity, and I just wonder what the ceiling is going to be. I'm sure we're going to get a gigantic number announced after that, and that's going to be a whole other debate, is understanding these numbers and what they really mean.
Yeah, I think it's going to be massive. I think a lot of it will also, like, we'll probably have a better gauge the week of, because I imagine WWE will be doing a whole lot of sending their talents out onto talk shows. I think we already had Cody on, Cody was promoting Saturday night's main event, but I think you'll see things like that, you know, with the various stars. You might see Cena, you know, like do the talk show circuit to promote this edition of Raw.
That's right.
But clearly WWE looks at it like it's their big swing at bat, you know, and I think for them it needs to be. But even if they don't get the word out on day one, simply having WWE Raw appear on people's front pages when they load up Netflix is already, you know, a big part of the game, and the big part of the reason why Netflix presents such an advantage over anybody else. It's not like I saw an ad for Drive to Survive before watching it for the first time. It was just a curiosity watch because it popped up on screen. It was in my Netflix top 10. That is, I think, as much, you know, effective advertising as anything they could do.
My last question. January 6th edition of Raw. What is the runtime of that episode going to be?
3 hours and 10 minutes.
Ooh.
I think we're like, it hasn't it essentially been
I think you're
confirmed?
probably in the ballpark. That feels right. Yes.
3 hours with an overrun. Now, do they run the risk of, like, you know, for a lot of people, it might be their first edition of Raw, or at least first in a long time. Do they run the risk of it going too long for the new viewer?
Yes, I think they will.
Okay.
I think they will. I mean, they're loading that show up. I am sure.
The average person sampling Raw is not going to stick around for the whole 3 hours.
No, but the number of minutes consumed, I feel that's a stat that's going to make a roaring comeback. That was always a big George Barrios stat, and I think it's going to make a surging comeback here. And if you can get your fans watching more, I mean, that is a stat to see if it makes a return. Juice Robinson, as we will get to in tonight's show, he is out of the Continental Classic after being injured in his match with Will Ospreay. A lot of people, they've been able to track down the spot in the match where you can see his leg just gets torqued at like a 90-degree angle. Just seemed like an unfortunate timing issue in the match. So he is out, and Commander is just going to take his spot, starting with 0 points, which Juice, he's only had the one match with Will Ospreay so far. Unfortunate, but I mean, that is kind of the purpose of having someone that can jump in, and I mean, certainly can have some great matches. Is not probably somebody that you would expect.
I think he's going to win. Yeah, I think he's going to take the whole thing, Commander.
Well, then that would be quite the re-education process, and maybe that would make me, if Commander won this tournament, maybe I would have more faith when I see a battle royal featuring 12 guys and 10 of them have no prayer of winning this thing.
we know what the deal is. Like Juice was essentially in this tournament with no hope of winning it either. Like he was probably going to be the person to take most of the losses so that the others could, rack up their points. And Commander, I think, is like a perfect person for that spot because we know he's not going to win. He has barely won in AEW at this entire time.
It's kind of his gimmick. He loses.
But I still look forward to all of his matches because he's a tremendous wrestler who brings like a very unique style. And that's, I think, the type of person you want for this spot. Every single match with Commander now feels like it's an attraction. And
him and Ricochet? I mean, what a match to kick off his tournament. That for both of them, that's a match they both can excel in.
Yeah.
So Saturday night's main event will be December 14th, and today they confirmed that the second Saturday night's main event will be January 25th, the Frost Bank Center in San Antonio, Texas. That's where Winter is Coming should be, should it not?
Every year, yeah, they should book this.
So this will be 1 week before the Royal Rumble, and what do you think about the strategic timing of this being a week before the Rumble, when you still do have the go-home TVs that week going into the Rumble, which is in Indianapolis, actually, where Tonight's Show is.
I guess I'm curious, is it so much strategy on the WWE's part, or is it just what NBC tells them?
I think this is more on the calendar of NBC. But, I mean, we're going to see a lot with this number of what kind of audience you can attract next Saturday if you are WWE. Is it going to be appreciably more than a Raw or a SmackDown that is in the 1.4, 1.5 million range? You would hope it's a bit above that. But we're also not talking the heyday of network television where this is your access to multi-million viewers that are going to be tuning in. The bar's a lot lower, and WWE can perform a lot better by the standards today of network television.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to talk about because I think traditionally, like Saturday night's main event doesn't feel like it's a big brand. Like, in fact, it feels like it's a devalued brand. But over the past month, I think they've done a good enough job of like telling the audience that what you're going to see is something that's relevant, more relevant than I guess, these have been in the past. It's an unfamiliar location, but wrestling fans will follow, wherever's advertised if they feel like the match that they're being presented is relevant enough. I think they've done a really good job, actually, of just telling people where to go, telling people that this is going to be like an important show. So I'm expecting like it to do really well. And how well it does in January will be, I think, very much dictated by how rewarding this show is on Saturday. If it can't just be a throwaway show, and judging by like the matches, I don't think it will be. But they need to tell people that your time spent will be worthwhile. Yeah.
SmackDown on Friday night, it was our second lowest number on the USA Network since moving over in September. 1,341,000 viewers and a .40, down 15 and 13% respectively. And this was going against the Black Friday game on Amazon with the Kansas City Chiefs and Las Vegas Raiders that did 13.5 million viewers, and a Georgia Tech game. So WWE, live by Georgia, die by Georgia football. And that did 8.5 million viewers. So a lot of football to contend with. They were still number one on cable, so they can boast that fact, and doing 309,000 viewers in Canada on Sportsnet 360. Collision and Rampage, not as pretty of a picture. This was the 3-hour block airing Saturday from 4 till 7, so it went against the 2-hour pre-show and the first hour of Survivor Series, and the two shows generating its lowest numbers in the history of Collision and Rampage. Collision from 4 till 6 did 144,000 viewers and a .03 in the demo. Rampage did 126,000 viewers, also doing a .03. And while there was a bit of a dip in the Rampage hour, I was more amazed that Rampage did not just utterly collapse when the Survivor Series began. In fact, 35 to 49 actually grew in that. So again, I think you're getting out a magnifying glass to find a glimmer of positive news there. But I would say at least some people were interested in this Rampage hour, the lucha themed Rampage hour. That Survivor Series didn't torpedo Rampage, and the demo actually stayed the same.
I guess if you're committed enough to watch Rampage on a Saturday afternoon, you probably had no plans to watch Survivor Series anyway.
Probably not. Like, this probably tells you the audience that is distinctly yours and was not interested in Survivor Series.
Or could they have been just like channel flippers that saw, hey, like Lucha Libre, you know, like this looks interesting.
I mean, you did have like Mystico on this show, which is wild. I mean, wasn't really built up to be anything of substance, but you did have some very big CMLL stars on this show.
So last year they went head to head with Survivor Series, and I mean, they did better, but that's of course like, you know, not really accounting for like the year-over-year decline rate, right? Like, but if you're AEW and then you run into this next year, do you go with this afternoon experiment again, or do you go head to head with Survivor Series, or do you do something different altogether?
I understand there's a certain like throwing in the towel that you don't want to necessarily fall prey to. I just think these Saturdays against WWE shows are, you either just ignore those weeks or you just accept like you're going to take them on the chin, because these Saturdays are just terrible for them. I think that if you're looking at this, like, it certainly doesn't paint a pretty picture, but I think if you're looking at the overall trend of Collision and Rampage, I mean, this was an extenuating circumstance that you do not look at as like, yes, these are shows that have declined greatly, but this is not indicative of normal weeks for Collision and Rampage, where you're up against Survivor Series, not to mention all the other programming that you go on a Saturday afternoon with as well. And if you look at this, like, they are putting Okada on Rampage this week, and important matches on Rampage as it relates to the Continental Classic. So just right there, it's not just programming names, but also matches with some importance if you're invested in the Continental Classic. So hopefully you will see a bounce back this week. And then the last thing before we wrap things up, let's just take a look. TNA, interesting announcement today. They have booked 2 very sizable arenas for 2025. They are going to hold their Rebellion pay-per-view on April 27th at the Galen Center in Los Angeles, which has a capacity of around 10,000 people. And then TNA Slammiversary will be on July 20th at the UBS Arena on Long Island. That is AEW's building in the market, which, I mean, at capacity can hold around 17,000. Now, I don't think TNA is going to scale either of these arenas anywhere near these levels, but it's more interesting to see TNA with these ambitions to run this size of venue and what they are going to be targeting. If they can draw in excess of 5,000 or 6,000, like, that to me would be what you're shooting for if you're TNA. But obviously, like, they have a confidence in themselves to be able to run these buildings, and it's time will tell if, I mean, this is too big of an undertaking for TNA, because we see the reverse effect when you're AEW and you run these big arenas and, you know, you have that cavernous feel to them. But this did surprise me that they book such big arenas when you look at the scale that TNA usually runs.
It's a big swing and a big move for TNA. They seem like to be in an upward trajectory, and I think like might be in a good position to take what feels on the surface maybe a risk, you know, like this. I wonder what they might have up their sleeve in terms of at least talent that might be appearing on the show. With its current roster, do you think that they can sell like an admirable amount of tickets for these venues?
I certainly see them being able to do a few thousand. But these are big buildings. These are really big buildings. Like, I would look at like 10K being kind of the limit I would look at for an AEW show at this time. And TNA is not of the profile of AEW today. If you have access to, you know, what their relationship with NXT, it has been like of a certain level that has come over. But you're asking about the current roster, and I think these are very ambitious plans, but they have till April and July. We will see. I mean, if you could sell, I would say 5,000 to 6,000. I would take that as a big success for TNA if they could sell 5,000 to 6,000 tickets. And the last thing is a Deadline coming up on Saturday night with our updated lineup following Tuesday's show. Trick Williams against Ridge Holland, after Ridge Holland took out Trick Williams, but Trick Williams maintaining he will he will wrestle this match on Saturday night. The Iron Survivor men's match has Ethan Page, Wes Lee, Nathan Frazier, Javon Evans, and the question mark, Eddie Thorpe, who was laid out at the end of NXT. And then the women's Iron Survivor, Sol Ruka, Zarya, Ren Sinclair, Julia, and Stephanie Vaquer. You have any predictions for the Iron Survivor challenges?
So for the men, I could. Well, I guess depending on if Eddie Thorpe gets a replacement,
which is possible. They seem to be leaning that way.
Yeah. Otherwise, of the list, like maybe a Wesley might be taking that step up. The guy cut his hair, and maybe that's a sign of like, hey, like you cut your hair, we're gonna reward you with like a title shot or something. Nathan Fraser seems. That's possible too, like they could lose the tag team titles, the earlier in the evening. So that's very possible. The women, I like the cure, Julie is also a possibility, but like
those seem to be the two.
Yeah.
I really like Javon Evans in the men's match. I think they've beaten him a lot more than he should be. Like that guy has a level of charisma that is just the highest level on that NXT roster, and he's still very young, but I would I'm very high on that guy, and I could see him winning.
And we got NXT Underground with Lola Vice and Jada Parker.
Yeah, maybe Josh Barnett will come in and officiate it.
After his words about imitators, I don't think so.
For all the flack that Effie got, man, did Josh Barnett, he didn't get any scrutiny for that speech from anyone. Did he keep it vague enough that there's plausible deniability?
Yeah, and I think Effie's words were very different from Josh Barnett's trash talk.
I mean, he pretty much just
Josh Barnett didn't insult I don't know Ari Emanuel's family members. Okay. Didn't call like Ari Emanuel I guess like a nepo baby.
I guess he knows where the line is not to cross. And then the other match is the tag title match with Axiom and Nathan Frazier against Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights, with the story that Frazier is in both the Iron Survivor Challenge, which it should be earlier in the night, and then he's got to come weakened for the tag title match with Axiom. Like that would make the most sense, or
vice versa.
I mean, vice versa, and you could say that Nathan Frazier, his head is not in the tag title match. He's thinking about the Iron Survivor Challenge, but I guess you could go place it either way. But that's effectively the story there of Axiom and Frazier, who their gimmick is like, what week will they break up? And they've been doing this for months. So there you go. It's an interesting show, and the Iron Survivor Challenge, it was one of those concepts that when it was introduced sounded like you wanted to see it in action, and then when you saw it executed, a pretty entertaining match. And for 2 years, I think they really hit on something that has worked. And I remember last year, just the booking of it, especially those final minutes, definitely a strength of NXT when it comes to booking these matches.
Braden Harrington, John Cena will be reviewing the show on Saturday right here on our feed, so look out for that. Also, currently on our feed right now, look for this week's edition of Up Next with Davey Portman and Neil Flanagan.
That is up now. You can hear them chat about Eric Bischoff and Sean Waltman coming to the Performance Center.
Yeah.
Big night of
busy
NXT.
week for Eric Bischoff.
I mean, yes, he was on Ariel Helwani's show giving his address. Did you know AEW dead, done?
If he says so, yeah.
And then he's got MLW tomorrow. The Melrose Ballroom. So yeah, he's all over the place.
Yeah.
All right, as are we. We're very busy people, and as Wai mentioned off the top, we are presenting our final edition of Talk this year. That's going to be dropping Thursday, postwrestlingcafe.com, as we will be sitting down, and there will be talking. We won't meditate. We will have lots to discuss, as Wai Ting is going to make an ultra-rare appearance at the Pollock household. I'm so excited. Yes, I have to stay up tonight and clean, and Wai has some very... big demands when he comes over that he expects.
I expect only yellow M&Ms, red carpet, full treatment. All right.
Oh, red! Damn it.
Yeah.
So that will be dropping on Thursday, and plenty to come this month on the Post Wrestling Cafe. The whole schedule is up on the site, and yes, we will have this coming weekend NXT Deadline show on Saturday, and then Sunday, myself and Eric Marcotte will go through UFC 310. Which is a very strong card for the UFC. Not like a big star versus star fight on the top, but from top to bottom, this is quite the card, featuring the UFC debut of Kai Asakura, who was a bantamweight champion for Ryzen and was brought into. So they don't have any UFC fights to promote of Kai Asakura, but they were able to get a bunch of his Ryzen fights and put them on the ESPN YouTube channel. And he's a very exciting fighter. But the footage that they do have, the way he got into fighting is that his brother was doing like these street fights. And so one night he dragged his brother into the street to fight him. And his brother, Kai Asakura, did so well in this street fight with his brother that he decided to go pro. And they got like the camera footage of this fight in the street that they played in the Countdown special. Wow. It's wild.
That's way more interesting than, I don't know, any sort of like other league.
Oh, this is, I watched a bunch of his fights this week. And, he's
street fights?
No, unfortunately they were in a ring, but yeah, that is your main event, and a really big fight with Shavkat Rakhmonov and Ian Machado Gary, battle of undefeated fighters. So that's coming up on Saturday night, and we'll have the review Sunday. Now it is time to move on over to Fishers, Indiana, 2,935 according to WrestleTix. And listen, every week I've come on here, I have lamented the crowd heat. But man, this crowd in Fishers, Indiana, I'm not going to say it's like a peak hot crowd, but I thought this was a pretty strong crowd throughout the night. Like, they added a lot to this show. It was 3,000, and they were actively into all of the matches. And I thought that, like, this to me is something where you can't always strike gold, but going to smaller markets that, like, this is only like a half hour out of Indianapolis, so it's not like you're in Fishers, you have no access to big time wrestling, but coming to a smaller market that is not always going to be a big hotbed, like, you're going to have hungry crowds for national promotions, and they got really lucky, I thought, with this market.
Yeah, I thought it was like a pretty good sounding show. Like, it certainly never stood out to me that there were any like dead moments. It felt like they were a very good crowd. Yeah,
it was a nice change of pace from usual. Again, I'm not going to oversell it, but it was notable. So we start off with a recap of week 1 of the Continental Classic as we go into Blue League action between Shelton Benjamin and Kyle Fletcher, who are both 1-0. And, this one fan who was going to be able to be facing the hard camera all night, he decided, I'm going to make a sign. And there we see a sign in big letters, Free Phoenix. I was only surprised that he probably debated, do I go with Starks or do I go with Phoenix? And look away how fast he is.
I think he even made a cutout of his own face, so exactly who brought the sign, or at least whose friend brought the sign.
Well, good for him.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I mean, these stories are out there, and these signs are going to appear. And it's up to them whether or not to focus on it. And I guess in this case, the cameraman, the director decided to focus on
and
feature this one.
Oh, wait a minute. That's not a pro AEW sign. Benjamin sends him to the floor, and Crowder is reacting well to this. And then Benjamin goes to run at Fletcher, and Fletcher gets out of the way, so Benjamin has to post himself. Let's just say Benjamin did not quite run into this post at the same rate of speed that Braun Breaker did into that desk. Man was very cautious going into this post. Fletcher catches him with a Michinoku driver, and they're having a very good match here. Benjamin connects with a powerbomb into his version of the STF, and when we get the rope break, the crowd, they were just booing Fletcher here. They were very much behind Shelton Benjamin. Fletcher would surprise him with super kicks, and then Benjamin comes back. He hits one German, a second German, and this crowd is just so loud, so he hits a third one, and they go nuts. Fletcher then ducks, and he ducks the clothesline, rolls up Benjamin, and holds the bottom rope for leverage in 15 minutes and 48 seconds. I kind of felt this was like just a cheap out at the end. So my one criticism is that I feel sometimes they just go overboard of the idea, okay, we're going to beat someone, but we have to protect them at all cost. And my biggest complaint on this show, this was fine, first match. The amount of behind the referee spots on this show was just aggravating by the end of the night because they happened in such frequency. There were multiples in one match that we will get to.
Yeah, yeah.
I say it more because this is the tournament where it's like the selling feature is like it's none of the bullshit that comes with a lot of our matches.
Right. I understand. I understand your criticism. I also understand the the struggle of the booker in having to put all of these guys that you're putting into this tournament to ultimately try to like push, but having most of them take a lot of pins. How do you progress somebody's stock while also having them take these pins? And oftentimes, unfortunately, the best answer is to give them a cheating defeat or cheating victory, you know, if you're a heel. So like to that end, I kind of feel like this might have been the best option if your goal was to one, like retain whatever specialness you've kept in Shelton Benjamin while at the same time giving Kyle Fletcher a heelish win. I always find these matches pretty interesting when you're double, you know, both guys are technically heels. Like in the G1, when this happens, it's always interesting to see like who they and who the crowd chooses to become the babyface. And in this particular match, it was Shelton Benjamin who was the de facto babyface because Kyle Fletcher is just, he's one of the hottest heels in the company right now. And the crowd is still very much on the side of like, you know, we know we're supposed to boo Shelton, but we also really like Shelton. So like, let's cheer Shelton here.
Well, it's a good sign for what they've done with Kyle Fletcher, and they didn't just gravitate towards Fletcher in this. It tells you that what they've been doing with Fletcher, they there was a very solid, you know, pro and anti sentiment in this match.
Yeah, and I also think it's an incredibly great sign for Shelton Benjamin, who, let's remember, like what he's been in this company for what, like I don't know, a little over a month it feels, and in that time, I mean, he's already lapped and done better than anything he's accomplished in his last WWE run. He's taken seriously now. You know, he's in the C2, and he's not just like in a spot where I feel like he's there to take pins. He might end up being that, but at least for now, I actually am really excited about all of his matches, and he comes in with more credibility than I think he's ever had in the WWE. He's developing new spots, like the Suplex City stuff totally works. So for a guy who didn't even garner that much attention upon his release from the WWE, I think the change he's had has been incredibly impressive. And Kyle Fletcher, we've kind of like sung his praises enough, I think, on these shows.
Then there were recaps of the Collision Continental Classic matches that included the Ospreay win over Juice and the announcement that Juice was out, and then wins by...
They didn't announce Commander, like replacing him on this, did they?
They showed the tweet that Tony Khan put out, and Commander's name was in there.
Oh, okay.
But they...
I guess I was expecting a graphic or something, but... Yeah.
And then, yeah, of course, Collision featured the draw between Okada and Garcia, which was our lone draw so far. Hook comes out, and he addresses Nick Wayne, but instead of fighting him at the Hammerstein Ballroom, instead he wants to fight Christian, and then challenges Wayne to fight him right now. So out comes Christian and Mother Wayne, and this was our first of several tonight where the babyface gets distracted, only to be jumped from behind. This by Kip Sabian and Nick Wayne, and Hook tries to fight them off, but gets outnumbered, and Christian nails him with the contract. They stomp him and then deliver a concerto to Hook's wrist. And Cage tells him to go take care of his hand. We'll talk later. So after promoting this match for the Hammerstein Ballroom, I guess you're left to, if they're even going to do this match, or he'll just work with the with a cast.
It being New York and it being like them spending this much time on the angle, I'm assuming that's going to be the case. You know, they really should have went for the head. Okay, if they want to take Hook out from this match, but they just attacked his hand.
It's just a wrist. Come on, you have a second one.
I like the fact that like the children of Christian are adopting the concerto as like one of their big moves, so that kind of is cool. Hook, we're getting a chance to hear him speak more and more, and I think he still sounds very limited, but they found a really good suitable voice for him for the character with his limited delivery. He's still able to maintain that cool sort of like, you know, doesn't talk much type of aura without needing to do a whole lot of like talking.
Renee catches up with Mercedes Moné, who was not going to call out Fishers. Instead, she went with Indianapolis. And Renee brings up the backstage attack on Camille that was shown on Collision. And Moné says to never speak her name. She quit, and Mercedes is not liable. And then mentions Anna Jay sticking her nose where it doesn't belong. She will be watching her match with Penelope Ford later on tonight.
So Camille's done. Is that the sense you get? Or
I
do
mean,
you
it
sense a
really
Camille
felt
return?
like, I mean, you could do the attack from Camille, but I mean, it could certainly serve as a write-off.
Traditionally, we would see an angle like that and we think, oh, okay, Camille's going to come back at some point and become like this big baby face. But I just don't know if like the audience will react that way to her. Like she hasn't done enough, to really kind of garner that sort of like appeal. In fact, it's been
We'll see if her
opposite.
name is brought up again beyond this segment. I was even surprised they brought it up here. I mean, if they continue to mention this, then I guess that tells you that they are keeping that in the orbit. MVP is pissed over Shelton's loss, even though it was a screwy finish, and says, I love you, but I'm disappointed in your performance. And so Shelton takes it out on a poor PA, and they just beat the hell out of him. A group of them. Yeah, because they hurt people.
I guess their way of maybe turning Shelton back into a heel after the tremendous applause he received tonight. And another way for them to kind of protect Shelton in the loss, like, oh, he lost, but he's accounting for it by beating up some innocent men.
Who was in charge of backlighting this garage door?
Oh, they overdid it. Like this is something that the WWE under Kevin Dunn has like, I don't know, like they've just done way too much over the years, and that's just like throw these unnecessary splashes of like red and blue light into these otherwise.
It's like they just came out of like a laser tag competition.
It's just silly. Like, and like sometimes they do it on NXT as well. It's like locker rooms where like lights just don't need to be. There's really I understand the thinking, okay? Like you're tasked to put this on TV, make this look presentable, like make this gate look presentable for TV. And oftentimes I guess the best solution is let's splash this light, with this like cutout of like a tiger stripe on it. But it's just like it's illogical. Like it makes no sense. There's no room that would look like this,
Next was the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal. So this is the updated version for this year, is that the Battle Royal will come down to 2 men who will then face off next week. The winner of that match takes on MJF at World's End. So it's a 3-step process to get this ring.
Right, because we need more obstacles before the match to MJF.
Obviously. Yeah. And we can't give up on these MJF promos from home. We need a few more weeks of these. So
this movie is a big movie. Okay, he's got a big role. He's one of the Happy Gilmore children.
I think they're just filming like multiple sequels by this point. I think they're going to take us into the future, into space, all versions of Happy Gilmore
in space. Okay.
Adam Cole is the lone person to get an entrance, and for good reason, because
oh man,
whenever these battle royals start, I have to hit pause to grab all the names, and man, a who's who of AEW dark graduates here. So you have Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly. Is that all we have to say? They were joined with cameo appearances by Lance Archer, Brian Cage, Mark Davis, Evil Uno, Top Flight, Action Andretti, Leo Rush, Rocky Romero, and The Butcher. I mean,
since when did the Butcher start wearing these like bandanas?
Dude, this was the hardest guy I needed. And finally, they zoomed in and I could see the word Butcher on the back. I did not know who this man was.
I thought it was like a Hulk Hogan or something, from the head up at least. I don't know. Like, what's he going for here?
Yeah, imagine Hulk Hogan versus MJF for the ring.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That would be quite the attraction. I mean, listen, I have nothing against these guys, but tell me you're about to put me through 12 minutes of my life that we're going to get to Cole and Kyle O'Reilly. Like, there was literally no other outcome to this battle royal.
Well, maybe we can like spend this time to just even talk about the concept of the Dynamite Dozen Diamond ring in general. It's been around for 5 years. Every year has been won by MJF, and I guess I know what they're going for. It's like it's his thing, it's a weapon, it's a signature weapon, sure. But like with the battle royals, there's just like there's no incentive at all for any of these wrestlers to win it beyond, I don't know, having an extra weapon, I guess.
Cole is not fighting for the ring. He is fighting for the match with MJF. Like, the ring is of no consequence.
So, yes, I do understand the motivations of Cole and O'Reilly to win the match, but nobody else in this dozen has any reason to give a shit about this.
Are they allowed to sell the ring?
Well,
we do know now, after this year, we do know market value at a pawn shop because of Daniel Garcia. So that has been introduced. There is a price attached to this ring.
Sure. Okay.
You could sell it.
Maybe that's the motivation then. Yeah.
So Andretti and Rush, this is the one interesting spot is that they end up hitting double handsprings, eliminating their partner's top flight, surprising Layla Gray. So that's one kind of storyline aspect to this. Mark Davis did get some boos when he was eliminated here. And we're just going to get to the end here where Cole is left with Kyle O'Reilly, Lance Archer, and Brian Cage. And wouldn't you know it, both big men end up on the opposite sides of the apron, and Cole and Kyle simultaneously knock them off, and they share words as they will have their match next week. 10 minutes, 7 seconds in a largely forgettable battle royal.
Honestly, like, and I don't say this often about like segments on like Dynamite, which I think is like such a fast-paced show, most of it like pretty good quality, but I thought the battle royal was boring. The action was fine, but I just didn't care about really anything that was going on, so it just kind of felt like a bunch of people like going through the motions to me.
Yeah, like there was no there was no drama attached to this in any way, shape, or form, and I thought this was like the lowest response from this crowd, which was well reacting to everything else. I just think this was just a means to get to your end and get to your match next week. Julia Hart vignette. She is coming back, and we see shots of Jamie Hayter, photos of her, a bleeding mask, and then an arrow to the neck of Jamie Hayter. So perhaps we are getting some archery coming to AEW soon.
Well, she's been doing archery in these videos.
She has been, so this is a nice connection. So we do know what the weapon of choice is. Maybe we're going to find Jamie Hayter laid out backstage with an arrow shot, and it's going to be a whodunit.
I don't think that's been done before in wrestling. I don't
arrow
think
to the neck.
Yeah, I don't think they've ever done a who shot this person with an arrow before. Have they done who shot this person before? Has there been a shooting gimmick storyline?
Of someone who shot
somebody actually getting shot, not somebody threatening to shoot.
Yeah. The closest we got was, we had Brian Pillman in Austin with the gunshot going off.
John Cena says TNA.
TNA, we had that awesome one. Remember James Storm shoving Mickey James onto the train tracks?
Yeah, TNA is its own different world. It's like people have died, people have gone
LAX
hell.
did the drive-by. There was that remember that kid that got ran over or something
at the docks? Yeah.
I lost track of deaths in TNA. They have, it's them or Lucha Underground that own the most deaths within its world.
So these video packages for Julia Hart have been excellent, and I want to give credit to the editor and the director of those. Her name is what is it here? Danny Venon. She's the person responsible for these videos, and she's doing some great social media videos showing her editing process for these. Yeah, she is. So
look at Wai working overtime here. This is a great, great find.
Backstage creators don't often really take enough credit for their own work. They
certainly don't get it on the program. I mean, it's just you never get to hear these people.
You almost get the sense that maybe it's just because they're they're shy or they're discouraged somehow from taking these sort of victory laps, but they shouldn't be, and this person should not be. In fact, she's really kind of enriching our experience by taking us behind the curtain to show us.
What's her name again?
Yeah, her name is Danny Venon. You can find her at The Editorial Style on Instagram and Blue Sky, or on X, _real_editor. Incredibly talented, and I think with these videos you're seeing bring a level of taste and creativity that you don't often see in professional wrestling. These have been some of the best videos that we're seeing in wrestling currently.
Then we went backstage to the Acclaimed with Daddy Ass. I don't know if anyone took credit for this one, but Billy says they have tried to talk Max out of this match with Swerve tonight, but we have faith in you, but you're going about this all wrong. Caster, who believes he's the greatest wrestler alive, asks Bowens what he thinks, and Bowens tells him to go out and prove you're the greatest wrestler alive. I can't tell you how uninterested I am in the whatever is going on with the Acclaimed.
Caster's turning heel.
Okay. Yeah. I think we're there.
He pretty much is, yeah. So I know it's a heel line, but if you're going to claim that you are best blank alive, I think there at least needs to be an ounce of grounding in something to even lead somebody to that claim. Like Max isn't even the best wrestler on his team.
Wow.
So I mean, well, it's the truth, is it not? Like, so like, what exactly was the thing that even motivated him to come up with this nickname?
He got a jacket.
Did somebody praise like one of his matches, and you know, like, did that go to his head, or was it just something he just thought would be like, I don't know, kind of a hot nickname? Like, it just feels random to me, you know, rather than something that might actually be grounded in an actual point of delusion.
Well, he came out, he did his rap on Swerve, that Swerve lost his title to a crippled guy. You've been stealing money like you're Hunter Biden, and your mom's house burnt down, but she can move in with me, and I'll be your new dad. Swerve did not sell one of these lines. Swerve just nails him with this running boot across the apron and attacks him, throws him into the steps. Into the ring we go. Swerve pops up from a missile dropkick, lands a house call, hits a second one, and then builds up for a third one and pins the greatest wrestler in the world in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And Swerve told Bobby Lashley, this isn't over yet, but this program with Max Caster, it's very over.
Pretty much, yeah. Really just kind of a means for us to get to the next step in the Acclaim's breakup, I guess. And the fact that they only booked this to go 2.5 minutes, I mean, yeah, pretty much underscores just maybe how much of a joke moniker, you know, best in the world is, or best wrestler in the world is supposed to be.
He'll always have that win in the Prudential Center.
Which was what?
That was his line last week, that, hey, we're in the Prudential Center, and I beat you at the Prudential Center.
Oh,
that's how this started.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
We go to the home bar of MJF. He says that he and Adam Cole were white hot together. Everyone was happy with none of this madness going on. Then you turned on me. And why? Because you thought I was going to turn on you first? You had no proof that I was going to do that. And then in the most telling line, look at the butterfly effect you've created from this. He explains Roderick Strong now has a broken arm, and now, Adam, you have to go beat up your best friend, Kyle O'Reilly. Jon Moxley, he's now the world champion, ruling with an iron fist. All of this is on you, Adam. And all this time, what bothers me the most is you pretending you're the hero, when really, you are the villain. A jaundiced, infected villain. And dude, I nearly did a spit take when he said this. The jaundiced, infected villain. I mean, guarantee you an insult that has never been uttered, probably in life, but especially in pro wrestling.
I mean, there kind of has been video evidence to support his claim, hasn't it?
You did have people concerned that this man has a liver issue with some of his tanning choices. You must be terminated, and I don't think you can beat Kyle O'Reilly. So I'm all in of that. Let's just continue this. Let's just go down this mangled story that is making like the history of the Undertaker and Kane seem simplistic. But let's just continue, because I get entertained recapping these every week, and your reaction.
Oh, I mean, my tolerance of this is strictly through your recapping, so I'm glad.
Jaundiced, infected villain.
That was a great line, John.
I loved it.
It would have been so much better in person. And I know this is like the best case scenario for an MJF who's currently busy doing something else, but man, like, I feel like these have been relatively unsatisfying. Like, it's been like 2 months now of like these sort of MJF like cut in videos, and I for one thing, I think they look too slick, you know? Like, to me, it kills the immersion of them being live reactions that are supposed to be reacting to something we just saw on the body of the show when they're like lit like this, especially the other ones that felt like they were like shot on film. You know,
what if he had like a red safari going across the back wall?
What do you mean?
Like that backlight that we saw for the Hurt
Syndicate. Oh, like the tiger strip. Yeah, that would have made it feel more real. Yeah. But I feel like these might come across better if like he shot this on like a cell phone video, or if he simply like tweeted out, you know, the jaundice line or something. Like, make it actually feel like it's taken place in the moment rather than something that was clearly taped beforehand. You know. So I also think it's just like, it's been too long with him really out of action for us to still be like compelled by this MJF Cole rivalry that they've been building. It's so clear that they're just dragging this thing out. and you're talking about an audience that is already sick enough, or at least like not like ready to move on from this. So, you know, I think they just like it's just been bad timing this entire feud for these two.
What if Kyle wins the match next week, and they hold off on
entirely
him and Adam
possible, entirely possible,
and then Adam Cole gets the match at Revolution in March?
It's not the craziest suggestion, John.
I want them to bleed this out till next year's Grand Slam, the 2-year anniversary of Cole breaking his ankle.
I just don't completely discount the idea that it'll be Kyle versus MJF first, and then we get to the Cole match.
I mean, you have no other reason for this Roderick Strong match than that, like, we're going to just continue these obstacles. But
and then Bobby Fish comes in and he challenges MJF. Where's the lie? You know,
all possibilities.
Yeah.
Pac against Jay White with Yuta in the corner. Did you notice Wheeler Yuta was at ringside for this match?
Yeah, I think I noticed it when he hopped onto the apron, like, I don't know, 12 different times. Yeah.
They mentioned Orange Cassidy update. He's still recovering from, quote, whatever that chemical substance was. So behind the referee's back, Yuta yanks Jay White to the floor and clotheslines him. The crowd is chanting Yuta sucks as Pac gets the advantage. And then White catches him with a snap suplex into the corner and spikes him with a DDT, which Pac just takes like the man has no regard for his spinal column. Pac's chest is so red from these chops. He gets a boot up in the corner, misses the shooting star press, and then a sleeper suplex finally lands for White, goes for the Blade Runner, and it's countered with the Brutalizer while Jay White is still on his feet. And somehow in this exchange, Jay White's mouth is all bloody, which I think actually added to the Brutalizer, that this guy looked like he's having internal bleeding from it, and he collapses to make it to the rope. Really good submission tease. And then, just as I'm enjoying this, Yuta yanks him again to the floor to hit the Busaiku knee. And, I mean, it just feels like these referees are just made to, like, how stupid can we make them feel? Mission accomplished here. He rolls White into the ring. Pac goes to lift him, but gets caught with the Blade Runner, and White wins in 13 minutes and 25 seconds. White does get his revenge, hitting a Blade Runner to Yuta. Shafir runs in, but of course this is a babyface, so he's going to be distracted so that the heel can jump him from behind and hits Jay White with the paradigm shift. This brings out Hangman Page. He stares down Moxley when all of a sudden a production member starts choking Moxley with a cable, and it's the unpoisoned Orange Cassidy, who has had his stomach pumped, and a brawl ensues. He hits orange punches to everyone, including Moxley, who then eats a Blade Runner, and it is Jay White, Orange Cassidy, and Hangman Page standing. And I will say this, Moxley staggers, he gets hit with the buckshot lariat, and we get an AEW chant from this crowd. I think this was like the most the babyfaces have looked strong in this whole Death Riders takeover. It was the first time the babyfaces like felt like a big deal, and the crowd treated them like a big deal. And then on top of it, you have Christian Cage walking out at the end with the contract, and Excalibur asks what this will mean for World's End. So a lot there, Way. What did you think of the match before all the post-match?
I thought it was a good match. Yeah. Jay is a very compelling wrestler to watch, mainly for like when he and his opponent get into the very exciting, very fast counter wrestling sequences. And he and Pollock, I think, had really good chemistry here. Crowd responds to him really well as a babyface. The Blade Runners out of nowhere are working excellently. And you know, as unfortunate as a Juice Robinson injury is, it kind of helped. Certainly in this case, you know, with White not having any backup and being sort of like a lone wolf, which I think makes him ultimately a more appealing babyface.
What did you take from this? Like World's End?
Yeah,
I mean, they're teasing like all types of stuff here.
I wanted to maybe talk more about just the moment itself. I agree with you. Like this felt like the first time the babyfaces like were getting some semblance of like giving some semblance of like a fight, you know, to Moxley. It's not just Orange Cassidy plus Darby plus like Evil Uno, like, you know, like the underlings. Like you're talking about like three top guys in AEW that are teaming up together to take on the threat of Jon Moxley. So like it felt like, you know, they were actually caring about this threat. But this is also assuming, is Hangman Page a babyface now?
Wait, I don't ask these questions anymore.
Because I don't think he is, like, because last we saw he got involved at the last pay-per-view because he wanted to get a title shot from Christian, so he's still completely self-interested right now. He doesn't seem to really give a shit about like Moxley's AEW takeover.
It makes, as of today, it makes zero sense that this guy should be getting a title shot based off like these losses. Like, why? How are him and Jay White on even footing here? But
do wins and losses really, like, are they the be all end all anymore? You know.
Then what was so big about Jay White winning these matches on the last two pay-per-views? What was the purpose of these matches?
So anyway,
if you were going this way, they could have split these matches.
Yeah, they could have. I mean, that remains to be determined. But just strictly talking about this moment, like, I wonder if this was actually meant to be like a unification of like top stars from AEW going up against the Death Riders, or if it was just simply like their way of visually telling us, you're gonna get a 4-way. These are the four men. This is not really like Hangman Page siding with Team AEW or anything, you know. So I'm just curious about that. Like, are we maybe reading something into this that we weren't supposed to, or is this a unified front with Hangman Page joining the babyface team to side up against the Death Riders?
I think you're more and more positioning like Hangman Page is still kind of like your lone wolf character, for lack of a better term. But in this instance, like his goal and AEW's, threat of the Death Rider, those are in alignment. Right. And that's kind of the Page character, is that he is out for himself in this championship, but in this instance, it aligns with these other two.
He will join the party in order to take out the common threat. Right?
Yes. And,
so what do you think? Are we getting 4-way? Could we get a 5-way with Christian Cage attached?
Well, Christian's another one. It makes, like, why would he engage in this? He's got his title match.
He's just waiting for his opportunity to cash in, right? He's looking at this and seeing the chaos and wondering, at some point I'm going to.
Well, he was definitely out there for a reason. So whether you're doing a 4-way and Cage is like in the shadows, or you just do a 5-way altogether, that's certainly what this feels like, a big multi-man of some form or fashion, which probably next week you want to get that announced for the pay-per-view.
It could be a multi-man. It could be like, I don't know, mini tournament setup.
What about Moxley singles matches against all four of them?
Of course that's possible as well. I mean, like, he kind of already like dealt with Orange though. Like, it kind of feels. So I don't even know if I see 4-way as much as maybe like some sort of like.
Jay White is the only one who has like a logical claim for this whole thing, but I don't know if you're going to do a Moxley Jay White singles match on top.
Why not?
Because I think
I guess it's less, maybe, I don't know, appealing than like an Orange versus Moxley, but it doesn't have to be the sole reason for the sole match to sell the card on.
I think that a lot of times when you look at these, the idea is the more stars you put in the main event, the more attractive it is, and I don't really subscribe to that theory, because I think sometimes these multi-mans are less appealing to people overall than your one-on-one singles build. But the question is, like, your main event is ultimately what you are relying on for the overall interest that is going to bring people to buy a pay-per-view, and then you have the supporting matches underneath. But it's that main event you want to rest things upon. Is Jay White that guy that we feel can carry a pay-per-view with Jon Moxley? But that is what we have.
Are you interested? Are you more interested after this tease?
I thought this was a really good segment. I think, like, whatever way they go, I think it's I think it's a good way to go. Overall, it doesn't feel like this does not feel like some blockbuster pay-per-view based on the programs that they are building towards here. But it's they're doing a fine job. I just think that you need a lot if they are going the multi-man route. I just think you do want to make sense of why all these people are involved, but we will see how they handle that.
All right.
Afterwards. Or you could do Jay White against Marina Shafir, and I think that would be, they're teasing that one.
Sounds fun.
Let's just go with it.
Let's put it.
Jamie Hayter addresses Julia Hart. Mind games don't work on me. And she says that you can't beat what you can't see. And so she is going to go find Julia Hart. I hope we get vignettes of her going out into the wilderness with a bow and arrow and a flashlight to find her. She also informs us how important the International Women's Cup is to her. So something tells me this is going to be taken from her grasp.
Ooh, she should all she needs to do is walk around with like a target board and
What if she takes
come to her.
that editor hostage? Where's Julia Hart?
That's the biggest threat.
I swear, she just sends me footage on a Dropbox. I have no interaction with her. I don't even have her number.
She sends a virus to the editor's computer.
Oh,
Ruins.
this is like
Yeah.
3-dimensional booking.
She
in
exports the
2024.
videos in 360p.
She gets she flags her YouTube.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I think it's been really tough for Jamie Hayter to like try to like sell this feud against like essentially a ghost, who's not present. She's having to cut promos on like video packages that look incredibly slick while she just kind of has like tiger stripe.
Look at this, dude. This is ridiculous. Stop this.
No, like I get it. Okay, like if this is a blank background, like I don't know, would people comment and feel like it would look low rent? Maybe. But there's certain situations where I think it just looks completely ridiculous. I think, whatever. Maybe most people aren't even noticing. But I think Hayter's promos have been good, like these are, they're one take things, but like, she shows a lot of passion. For the first time, I think since her return, she actually conveyed some of the disappointment in her injury that cut her momentum off. So it suggests that she's aware that she's having to start from the bottom and, she lost something, with that unfortunate timing of that injury.
Then we went to our new Sean Mooney, Chris Jericho, hosting the New York Minute to promote the shows coming up, including the Hammerstein Ballroom events, where he will be announcing his opponent for Final Battle on tomorrow's Ring of Honor episode on Honor Club. He also promoted the on sale for All in Texas, and that was that. This was a totally wild segment to be watching.
I mean, sort of a lot in line with what is it? All the Loading Tree segments, isn't it? Kind of absurd. Kind of making you think like, whoa, what was that? And kind of funny, to some people. Obnoxious, certainly. But I would also say this was very productive in advertising these dates coming up. Even advertising watchroh.com.
This is probably the biggest promotion Honor Club's gotten in over a year. So you did have that.
So should we spoil the challenge?
Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry if you're an Honor Club subscriber, you should turn off right now. But
giant backlash you're going to receive.
It looks like it's Matt Cardona who showed up during the ROH taping and challenged Chris Jericho to the Hammerstein match.
Okay, so that is the December 20th event. So the first of 3 nights at Hammerstein.
Yeah, interesting choice. What do you think, Matt Cardona?
I guess they're believing that, he's someone that has, some buzz, that they're trying to sell roughly 2,000 tickets for, and I do not know if they're going to hit that figure for either of the nights, maybe for Dynamite. But yeah, I mean, it kind of tells you like that's kind of where they look at in terms of, ROH is, a pay-per-view. Let's remember, it's a pay-per-view on Honor Club as opposed to, spending $40 for this show.
I like the idea of them like kind of going out of their system to find a name that, has like a certain level of buzz attached to him and making this feel like more of a special attraction rather than just like a match you'd see otherwise on like a Dynamite,
Then we went to an old Western setting to begin the countdown to the return of the most wanted man, Bandito, who is coming back.
Yeah, this looked really slick. This was another, like the video production on the show. I think like it was a step above, what we're used to from AEW. And this video package was very encouraging because it tells you that they're actually invested in Bandito and might actually be giving him a push if they're willing to invest this sort of production on him. It's also it's encouraging between this and Julia Hart to see AEW put the work into setting the stage for people returning from a layoff rather than just like, here's the match graphic, they're gonna wrestle this Wednesday and that's it.
Yeah, but good vignette, and I'm glad that they're putting this stock into Bandito and somebody that can come back and be a player for them. Anna Jay and Penelope Ford, they showed a video of their history, including the big tag team street fight on Rampage 3 years ago. Very famous match. And Ford rams her into the steps and post and hits a handspring elbow. Jay connects with the iconoclasm and works on the neck, goes for the Queen Slayer. It's countered, allowing Ford to hit a stunner for a 2 count. And then after Ford misses a moonsault, there's a sit-out drop kick, and Anna Jay goes for her gory bomb, and it's stopped. And they just went through like this sequence that just felt as though, like eventually Ford gets a Muda lock on. We get to a rope break, and then once they get back up, the gory bomb is just hit, and she pins Ford. And I almost wonder if we could have just ended it with the first gory bomb tease, because it just felt a bit awkward for the final minute or so. But we got there. Anna Jay gets a clean win and calls out Mercedes, who comes out and states that if Chris Statlander can't beat me, what makes you think you can? And Renee says, if you want a title shot, come back in 10 years when you've actually done something in this industry. So then Anna Jay says, something like this, and slaps her. And Monet exits the ring. I'll do this on my time. No, you will do this on the company's time, because boom, we've got a match graphic and it's in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So first, the segment itself, I actually, I don't know about you, but like I actually felt like Monet sounded better than usual on this episode. I don't exactly know the reason for it. I don't think it's really anything to do with Camille, but like I don't think she's a great promo. In fact, like I don't think she's necessarily improved much like in the years since we've seen her. But for whatever reason, I felt like she was a bit more sure of the character this time, and the character felt bigger and just came across better to me. I don't know how you feel about it, John.
It didn't leave a strong impression. Like not great, not bad. It was fine. It was just I just didn't think it was all that sizable of a segment to get like a real read on any change.
But what we should be talking about is just how quickly they put this graphic up. I did not like that. And to some, this might sound a bit like we're nitpicking the hell out of the production on this show, but I think these details matter, especially for somebody who for years has talked about like their distaste for the invisible camera. You know, there are things like this that will break your immersion into the show. Like a segment where we were supposed to believe that, you know, it was Anna Jay challenging Mercedes Moné like in person, Mercedes saying no, I'm going to do it on my time, and in the next second you're already seeing the graphic. So what are we supposed to infer from this? That what, Tony Khan like doesn't really care about the interaction, he had this match booked anyway, or maybe the editor's just really fast, the graphics guy,
or just
really,
just
really
air
fast.
this after the commercial break.
Exactly.
I just don't like. It's a granted, this is like a tiny thing, but both of us had the same feeling, and I'm sure many did. It just felt like it felt as though this segment was not in line with, like, it just felt like it felt like the left hand and the right hand not knowing what the other was doing, because the whole purpose of the segment was to tease this and pull it away, and yet that was not the purpose of how the show was structured.
Well, it was worse a couple of weeks ago when they showed the graphic for the match before actually showing the segment to build to the match. I believe that was with was it with the Hurt Syndicate? Somebody involved in that?
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, where the graphic gave it away. And that Holiday Bash show is December 18th, so it's Monet against Anna Jay, the same show that has Ospreay against Darby. Brief sit down with Renee and Mariah May. Man, I think Mariah May has really found her voice after the Tony Storm breakup. Like, she has morphed into this new character, and she did this awesome promo on Collision on Saturday as well, and I just think her promos have been great during this time. Like, we talk about someone that has been just quietly like building up her character, and week after week I think she's been doing a really great job. She accuses Renee of not having any friends. You just sit down here and poke holes in people's lives. What would she say about us, Way? We just sit around here and poke holes in production. May is generous to be giving a title shot to Mina Shirakawa, telling Mina, shaking your tits only gets you so far. Eventually you have to go to work. And then she just starts ragging on women's wrestling. It's dead. And Mina walks up with a champagne bottle. Renee's freaked out, but instead Mina just hands her the champagne bottle and tells her, do it to my face. Make me work. Nice segment that they had here, and this was all of like 60 seconds that they had to do this.
It feels like they might have like shot all of this in like one afternoon or something. But they've all been great. They've all been excellent, and I think it's so impressive. Like for Mina Shirakawa, somebody who rarely makes appearances on AEW, like who's for her English is not the first language, for her to do such a great job in being an equal in this like very compelling relationship now rivalry. So I'm sensing this will be the main event, don't you think? It's
For
a title
winter is
match.
coming. Yeah, it won't be Cole and O'Reilly. I don't have the.
It won't be a C2. Well, it could be a C2 match.
I
but this
would
feels
end
like
the
it
show
should.
with it. Okay, so next week, courtesy of the great John Cena, Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly, Will Ospreay and Claudio in the Gold League, Ricochet and Brody King in the Gold League, May and Shirakawa, and then Pac and John Moxley against Jay White and Orange Cassidy. I would put the women's title in the main event. Like it's the
too.
lone title match. They have been finishing with Continental Classic matches, but that's because there haven't been title matches in place of it. So yeah, I could certainly see this closing the show.
It's been the best built match, okay, and I'm comparing it to Kyle O'Reilly versus Adam Cole, and it's for a title. I absolutely think it should.
Yeah.
Main event.
Man, they're already at 6 matches for the show, so that's pretty much.
Oh, one
full.
of these is Collision.
Oh, that's right. With Willow facing Serena Deeb this weekend, and then the winner faces Jamie Hayter. Okay, so Rampage on Friday night has Daniel Garcia against Beast Mortos in the Blue League, Ricochet against Commander in the Gold League, and Kazuchika Okada against Mark Briscoe in the Blue League. So that is the strongest Rampage in a long, long time. Collision is in Columbus at GalaxyCon on Saturday. That's got Okada against Kyle Fletcher, which should be really great. Mark Briscoe against Daniel Garcia. Darby Allin against Commander in the Gold League. Serena Deeb against Willow in the International Women's Cup qualifier. And Mina Shirakawa against Amy Sakura. Poor Amy Sakura. It's the pre-title match warm-up spot.
Could be competitive.
It could be.
Could be.
Main event of Dynamite is Brody King and Claudio Castagnoli. So the early portion, it's Claudio working on the arm, and I am going to officially concede that Brody King is now a babyface. I fully understand he is a babyface.
Well, it depends on who his opponent is. You know, like certain combinations will make him more heelish, but in general, I feel safe to say that the House of Black are
He
heels.
was pretty over in,
Or sorry,
in this
baby
match.
faces.
Yeah,
Sorry, House of Black are baby faces. Is Julie Hart a baby face?
No. And I don't buy that Buddy Matthews is either. Malachi Black is kind of a tweener, and Brody King is full babyface. I think.
They were a tag team.
Maybe they should be called the House of Gray.
Love it. Yes.
So Claudio is working on the arm, snaps it on the top rope, but King comes back, big superplex. Crowd goes wild for that one. They're chanting for Brody. Claudio then ducks to the floor, smashes King's hand on the apron, but then King just starts chopping him with the right hand. And the announcers point this out. They're like, he's still using the hand. This could affect him later in the tournament.
It's still your dominant hand, okay? Like just because your right hand's injured, you're not going to stop writing with your right hand.
You got to be ambidextrous in this modern day pro wrestling game. Okay, you got to be able to chop with both hands. King gets cut off. So Claudio destroys him, throwing him into the barricade, and then goes into the ring. And this has been how Claudio's been winning all his matches. Destroy him on the floor, and then they're prone for the lariat. But this time, King cuts him off and hits his own lariat for a big near fall, tries for the Gonzo bomb. It's countered. And God, this was like... It was like my testicles that Claudio hit here, because behind the ref's back, he just low blows him to hit the neutralizer. And I was just like, F off with this finish. I just thought that like, this is just too lazy for me. And he wins. But he protected Brody King.
Yeah, I mean, again, I personally don't mind it just because, like, I mean...
It's just too relied upon. It's just such a go-to that I just feel it's such a... it's such
heels.
a crutch.
They've always played dirty. Well, not to this extent, but like even like with the BCC,
I would even be fine if you just had a more clever way around it. Like we have this spot all the damn time with the hold the ref, low blow him. We got it in the opener here, and it's I don't know. It's the preponderance of them that just get.
You also had the arm injury, which could have been just a justifiable out that would have protected Brody King as well.
There's ways around it, but Claudio gets the win, so he moves to 6 points. And next week, it's Claudio against Ospreay, and they announce Moxley and Pac against White and Orange.
Yeah. I thought this was a very good match, very chaotic, very meaty energy, as I think promised.
And boosted by the crowd as well.
Boosted by the crowd, yep. I thought Brody King did an excellent job selling the arm and feeling like a compelling babyface. He's an outstanding performer, and I think like he could be the best big man in the company if given a significant push. Claudio, I love watching Claudio in general, but seeing him work with a bigger guy too is actually even more interesting because it allows him to be more physical and even more impressive than usual. So fun match. Did you have a match of the night?
On tonight's show, I really liked the main event, and I enjoyed Pac and Jay White. I would say those were the two that really stood out to me. Fletcher and Benjamin had a good match. I didn't think at the level of the other two.
Yeah. What have your thoughts on the Continental Classic thus far?
I think it's been a fine start. I don't think it's necessarily. I don't think it's come out and been this.
Like it's not the G1. If that's your benchmark.
I think so, and I do feel it's a repeated criticism we have. I do feel that if you had a lot of these matches simmering for weeks, that you have all this stuff out, people are anticipating these matches, you've got your promos going into this tournament, you give people like 3 weeks to really get ready for this tournament, and for whatever it is, whether it's the difficulty in scheduling, it's sort of like you get a week or a couple days notice of when the next matches are coming, and you kind of get rid of some of that anticipation factor. But the matches have been good. I don't think we've seen anything that has just like blown everyone's minds, and that's sort of the level you expect for some of these. It's a high bar, but I also don't have any like real big complaints other than I do feel there is a bit of a crutch on some of these finishes that you try to market this tournament around sort of a break from a lot of that. So I just hope it doesn't become a habit as we get deeper into the tournament.
Mm-hmm. I like if in our minds, and they're kind of making these comparisons to the G1 themselves. So I don't really like, this is supposed to be of the same league.
They brought up Masahiro Chono tonight.
Yeah. So I don't maybe feel so bad about making the comparison, but like the G1 to me, like they still offer, I think, the standard in like match quality. And I don't exactly know the reason why the C2 hasn't yet. It could just be because opening round matches maybe aren't booked to go like, an epic length with like crazy back and forth. But they have like the talent for it. They have most of the top talent from the G1s participating in this. But thus far in our first week, we haven't really had that like match of the year candidate like we often already do for the G1 yet. But it's provided wonderful momentum for these shows where like every match has something to look forward to, because like look at the Rampage coming up. Every show is going to feel relevant and must see if you're going to follow this tournament.
All right, that was Dynamite, and I would say a very good debut in Fishers, Indiana. I mean, 3,000 is 3,000, but I thought they added a lot to this show. So bravo to the fine folks there. We are going to move on to your feedback. If you have super chats, send them in. Otherwise, we will start off on the forum.
We got a super chat here from Scumbag Trav.
Oh, Scumbag. Great to hear from you.
Maybe our Scumbag, okay? $2 says, been listening to you guys for years. You rock. Yeah, you're definitely our Scumbag.
Thank you, Scumbag. We appreciate the support very much and listening for all these years.
Thank you for that super chat.
We go to Kenny. 3 quick thoughts on Dynamite. Matt Menard is getting really good on commentary. He was especially awesome during Kyle Fletcher and Shelton Benjamin, but his commentary was strong all night. Do you have an opinion, yay or nay, on Matt Menard?
No, not so much. I mean, I think he does an amicable job. Maybe not to the level where like I feel like I think that much about it, but he's fine.
Yeah, he's. I think he's unoffensive, which I will say is kind of like middle of the road. I mean, sometimes he gets really excited, sometimes he just yells. But he brings in energy, and I think that sometimes can compensate for someone that is not your traditional play-by-play or color guy.
I changed my mind completely after hearing that impression. I please be on every show, Matt Menard, so I can hear John do that.
It's Saturday night. He's very like, he brings a lot of energy. Like he has a bit of that Pat McAfee in him, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. His other observations. They really got a bunch of geeks together for that battle royal. I don't think there was any doubt who was winning. No, that was the least dramatic battle royal they've put together in some time. And finally, imagine finding out you're wrestling Okada for the first time one-on-one and they're putting it on Rampage. I mean, you have all these matches to do, and I don't mind it at all. Like, I'm someone that watches Rampage each and every week, so I think, it's the future of Rampage is certainly does not seem to be too long, but I mean, you got to put these matches somewhere, and they can't all fit on Collision and Dynamite when you do have other stories going on as well.
I think you're probably just grateful you're wrestling Okada at all in a singles match. Not everybody really gets that. Let's go to Brian in New Jersey. After watching an episode like this with tournament matches, grudge matches explained by past footage, and challengers lining up for the world champion, I definitely didn't see this as a show for the lowest common denominator. I thought all three men's singles matches...
That's in reference to Eric Bischoff, for those
oh, yes, right.
that missed his description of AEW programming.
Oh, okay. I didn't really pay that much attention to his words. I think I just have a filter in my head at this point. I thought Eric Bischoff, not Brian. I thought all three men's singles matches were strong, albeit with iffy finishes. Even with no outside interference in the C2, the heels still find ways to cheat. My favorite match tonight might have to be Fletcher versus Benjamin. With how hard and fast they went, it took me too long to realize both AEW and WWE each have a guy who has gotten over with crowds by barking. People love to bark.
That's the secret. Get a guy who can bark, and that you have a singlet so you can take your straps down, and you're set.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The segment where there were 4 potential challengers set up for Moxley was better timed and laid out than the closing angle of Full Gear. Pleasant surprise to see Bandito's return getting teased. When these Cowboys were talking about the Wanted Man, I thought it was a tease for Nick Nemeth at first. Yeah, probably not happening now.
No. We didn't get into that story, but maybe later in the week we will discuss it. There was a lot of news to get to, but
with Ryan.
Yeah, with Ryan Nemeth. But anyway. Andrew from Cape Breton. The biggest highlight of the night wasn't something that was in the ring, but the audience. I can't imagine it was this massive crowd, but they were really hyped to be there. The Fletcher-Benjamin match picked up more at the end, and I wish there was some interaction between MVP and Don Callis trading barbs before the match. The show is continuing to build things and move forward well. I liked how the wrestlers finally got some revenge on Moxley. I feel when Jay White attacks Marina Shafir, the building will go nuts. The only low light was the continuation of the Adam Cole saga, but hopefully it will all be over soon. I mean, what can we say? Brian Cage with a beard looks like a jacked Bobby Roode. Good show as usual.
Let's go up next to Jordan from the Bronx, who says, as per usual, the in-ring action on Dynamite was very good. The C2 provides a nice focus for a part of the card, and the matches always deliver. The Battle Royal was a foregone conclusion, though it took me a long time to figure out if the big muscle man with the beard was Brian Cage, Nick Comoroto, or 2005 Matt Morgan. AEW has been improving and setting up future shows and progressing some programs. I just don't find myself getting excited for it. I still watch every week. The crowd this week sounded great, but the feeling that they keep wanting to bring back just doesn't seem present. There's a weird space that AEW is currently in within the community. There's something about the product that is causing a lot of the audience to have a general apathy towards it. Not many people are discussing the shows much outside of what happens on Dynamite and the pay-per-views. Now with Nick Nemeth CM Punk issues going public, Ryan Nemeth CM Punk issues going public, Effie's continued comments, Bischoff's current press run on multiple platforms, and the product itself, it seems that AEW's air has been let out of its balloon. I don't have the answers for what they can do to heat themselves up again. So every episode it feels like we get into like this is our meditation, John. How do we fix AEW seems to be the topic on people's minds, and there's no like right answer. I don't even know if we can add anything worthwhile to the discussion at this point. I also don't even know if Effie or like this Ryan Nemeth thing or Bischoff's current press run has really changes anything about the status quo.
Let me simplify it this way, because we discussed a little bit about this today on myself with Brandon. Do you separate issues of AEW versus issues with Tony Khan as the person overseeing creative, or is that one and the same?
No,
is that ultimately
separate.
what people are talking about here? Is that if someone else, not to say remove Tony Khan as an executive and the person running this company, but as the person overseeing creative, is that something AEW is facing?
I personally think they're separate issues. Like whether or not again, like Ryan Nemeth's claims of his treatment, or his complaints not being addressed, or like Effie talking about Tony Khan or Hammerstein or Bischoff's comments, which I probably wouldn't pay attention to anyway unless people were talking about it. It doesn't really change or affect my opinion on the creative product in any single way. I mean, I'm sure there's something maybe to do with like the feeling or like how much you want to support or like how hot AEW is. Maybe there's something to do with it. But if you have a good show, I don't really think any of those issues would hurt it. And it's an interesting conversation because every week, I would say for the most part, we talk about Dynamite and we come out of it with a positive feeling, right? Like, to me, it's still a good show.
Yeah.
It just needs to be an even better show because I guess it's even being a good show is not enough, to attract an audience that might be already satisfied watching the other show.
Yeah, I think so. And there's, you can talk about whether it's just missing that, like what was something that was very, very much you could sense the tide going upward for WWE. It was what you can really pinpoint it to is, Cody going to WWE seemed to be like a real big deal, and the questions of like, is Cody really going to fare well in this company? And it became pretty evident that they were going all the way. And now this company had a big major babyface star who felt like a big babyface. And that historically has been a big game changer for companies when they can have that big babyface figure. And does AEW lack that at the moment?
Well, let me say, Cody was a big part of it, but Cody wouldn't be Cody unless he had a big heel to dethrone, to complete his story with. So I would say, like, for me, the trajectory started with the Bloodline and started with Roman Reigns. Started, you can argue, like in the Thunderdome era when maybe they were like honing in on that character and that particular storyline, and the continued like great handling of it, throughout the years, and the protection of Tribal Chief Roman Reigns, to the point where he was a hot enough character to create Cody out of. And it's not just that. It's like, we include Sami Zayn in it. You include like Drew McIntyre. You include like CM Punk, eventually into it. But in general, it's just it's the creative, right? That is ultimately what we're talking about, and a change in creative that is just very satisfying for the most part. AEW like has, I think overall like I would even say good creative, but like there are a lot of holes you could poke into it, and that's maybe the biggest issue because the other show doesn't have as many holes these days.
Yeah, and I think that you have also
we're doing. I can't believe we got one of these like 10-minute discussions but people want to hear about it clearly, But
they do. I think you just have to look at the fact of, like, sometimes it is very difficult when you do have a formula that is connecting with the public, with the audience, and then
you're talking about AEW having.
I'm talking about AEW, who you could certainly say that like they were satisfying an audience in a great percentage
simply by presenting like professional wrestling, like great professional wrestling matches.
That was it. Like, and I don't mean to just like simplify it to like, these first 3 years were just great wrestling matches. There were stories. There were like, there were very good stories that they had, like the rise of a Hangman Page.
Just like there are great stories now. Like Swerve versus Hangman is still wasn't that
anyone, long ago. And this goes for like an Eric Bischoff that just dismisses that there's no stories in AEW or that they're all garbage. It's like, it's indicative of someone not watching the product.
Well, listen, the man literally wrote the book on controversy creating cash, and like that's why I don't take him seriously. Like, like the more we mention his name, the more it just kind of feeds to what he's looking for. Right?
But getting away from all of that is, the understanding that what your audience wants, it will change, it will evolve. And I would argue that you could ask 100 AEW fans of what it is they're looking for AEW to address. You might get 50 different answers. Like, I don't think
the audience even knows what they really want.
like I think a lot of people, and that does differ from, say, 2019, where I think if you were to ask a disenfranchised WWE fan, like, what is not connecting with the product, I think they could get very specific with you about certain things that had just become such tropes of WWE programming, things that were just not connecting. And like, to your point, Wai, like, I think you could sit down, you could watch tonight's Dynamite, and you're not coming away as though like this thing is in free fall or that it's a poorly produced product. Like this is far from the dying days of WCW, where this was, I mean, how this stuff was being written onto paper and making its way onto television was a goddamn miracle that this stuff was being produced. That's not where they are now.
But there's a difference between being a good show and being a hot show.
Well, that's it. It's that old saying that good can be the enemy of great. And is this a very good show? Sometimes it's a very good show, and sometimes not. But it's rare that we come on here and it's a total swing and a miss where you just feel they are so off the pulse of what their audience wants, but they're not connecting with their audience to the degree they were. And you can come up with many different diagnoses of what that is. And it's like, ultimately, when you have such a wide variety of this is wrong or that's wrong, it's going to come down to the direction of creative. And it's like a team that it's going to come down to the coach. That's the easiest person that is going to be under the gun that you're going to assess. However, this person who heads creative is not answering to anyone beyond themselves too.
Mm-hmm. We could do this for like 5 hours.
We're going to put a moratorium on some of these State of AEW discussions.
No.
It's I only have so many in me in my life.
It's fun to talk about. Like, it's interesting. It's impossible to solve. But you know, here we are. Like, I don't think replacing Tony is the solution. I think it's like, it's adding to Tony. You know, it's having the right people underneath Tony to perhaps just filter, you know, finding the right filter perhaps, you know, to really kind of bring it all together. Anyway, we solved it again, did it again, fix the problems every single week. We did it. Let's go to Lady B, who sent a super chat here at $10. Thank you very much for that support, Lady B. With brand split convos happening around AEW right now, if you had to choose 8 core acts or wrestlers and at least two women to build Dynamite and Collision around, who would make your list?
8 core acts and wrestlers.
Yeah, I mean, 8 is maybe too. We're gonna be here forever, like going through the roster. But like, maybe name like
here. We're getting this like just fresh. I would say right off the bat, I would make like, if your Death Riders angle is happening on one show, I think the Hurt Syndicate should be on the other show. I think separating those two would be of value to them, because I just think that is like, as time will go on, it's going to be this awkwardness that these two ships never meet in the night these two big heel
It's factions. Like having the Judgment Day and the Bloodline on the same show. Like, you know, you can't have them both feel like they are dominating the show on the same program, right?
I think you could certainly, like, I would want to see at least on both shows, you know, look at, we can sort of see they are in a very aggressive mode right now, whether it's like elevating a Jay White to a level. They've done a really great job with Orange Cassidy. Like, that's been a real success story.
Kyle Fletcher, end of story. You know, like
Kyle Fletcher, another one. They have done a really great job with Kyle Fletcher this year. Yeah. I would be even going below that level. Like, who are the ones below that? Who are our 2025, 2026 projects? And I'm going to put, say, 2 to 3 men, women on opposite shows, and the hope is we'll have 1 star of each that are going to rise up over the next year. And they're not going to be main eventing in 6 months, but in 12 to 18 months, we want to see that progression. And quite frankly, and this is not a popular sentiment that you're going to have, is that when you have a roster, I do feel that sometimes it helps to refresh your roster, and that there are some times that, and Tony has, I think, done this pretty admirably, that you wait until these contracts are up. You're not firing people. But when a contract comes due, like, there are some people, like, you don't want to have, like, they would always say with sports teams that, like, the key would be you want to have like 10% turnover every year, because it freshens up things and you can get new people in. And more importantly, there are some acts that kind of reach their a staleness, or just they need a new change of scenery. And you want to have that flow going, because audiences tend to get attracted to new and people coming in, and new matches, new stories are created. and you can have that flow going. I think AEW could benefit from some of that. You don't want to run a pat hand forever, and there has to be decisions made on talent we go for and ultimately talent that we take a pass on. It's getting a little bit away from the question, but I think those are things. And more importantly, to a brand split, I'd very much want to have two shows that you could tell me what Collision is and what Dynamite is. At the moment, other than one is the A show, like, I don't know if you can break down too many differences between them, but you also don't have that kind of brand split to want to separate them.
In the Punk era, you had more of that
You're right.
distinction.
You're right. When they started it, there was a distinctness.
Yeah. And then afterwards, it just kind of, I think once the ratings started to like show us what Collision was, maybe it gave Tony less incentive to like maybe have the rosters be entirely split. I just, the roster is really good in AEW right now. I think you could argue too good. There are way too many talented people that I think you could potentially build a show around. It's, to me, like, it's not an issue of talent. It's an issue of the direction and the creative direction around the talent. And so I that's the first thing that I think I would do. And if you're going to do a brand split, I wonder if like a creative brand split would be something that would be considered as well. But maybe that's even getting too far ahead of the conversation. I am in favor of a brand split though for AEW. You know, just any way that we can maybe reduce the or split the identities of the two shows, but also like give maybe dedicated airtime every single week to certain members. Just like the ability to create a more sort of easy to understand framework for somebody wanting to dip into AEW and follow the storylines, I think is so helpful. You know, like it would reduce the commitment for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you're only an AEW Dynamite viewer, you don't suddenly feel like you're missing out on half the story because you're not watching Dynamite Collision. And I understand they want everybody to watch both shows, but that's just not possible. Like, to get people to watch both shows, maybe start with people being entirely dedicated to one show to the point where they feel like watching the other show, because it's having the opposite effect right now where you're demanding so much of people that they're just not watching anything.
And by creating a distinction, like over time, you may be encouraging people to watch both shows, because today, like, it is, you know, not to like most people, it is you're watching Dynamite, and Collision is a show that maybe you'll catch, maybe you won't catch, but it's not must see every Saturday.
Yeah, for most. Solved it again. Did it again. Thank you very much, lady.
Too easy.
John L sends a $5 super chat. Thank you, John. He says, do you guys think AEW is in a lull because they're saving... We're going to have to solve it one more time, John. Do you think AEW is in a lull because they're saving the bigger stories and surprises and matches for Max? Or is TK just too distracted during the NFL season?
I don't think they're just holding on to the golden ticket. If ever there was a time to be just throwing the gauntlet out, it was this past year in the lead up to this television contract, that you're not holding pat, because there was no guarantee of being on Max until that deal was announced a few months ago. Tony Khan being too distracted during NFL season. I mean, there's a question that only those around Tony Khan can give a real honest assessment of, is, you know, how much is this guy that has taken it on? And it's just sort of been assumed that this is all, like, it's been like this from day one. I don't know how he balances all these different things with increasing hours of television that he has got his hand on in such a big way. And I think it's a natural question that historically, like, every booker has that period where they eventually hit a burnout factor. And I don't know if that's the case for a Tony Khan, but like, that's always, like, from day one been a concern of, like, just so much that he undertakes that just an average person, like, just booking would be a full-time job. And he's running this, just the roles in AEW, forget the NFL, forget the soccer, like, or football, like all these different things, like from Fulham to the Jaguars to AEW, like these are.
Well, how much more is he doing now versus when AEW began?
I mean,
projects outside of AEW.
You started off and you were doing, 2 hours of television.
Yeah.
And,
But he was also working for the Jaguars. He was also working for Fulham at the time. Okay. So now he has to book more television. I mean, that's more of a demand.
And you're just doing it that many more years. Like there's a certain level of like how long you can keep that up. And
but do we have evidence that like during the NFL season there's any sort of like lull in Tony's creative vision or execution? I don't think so.
I don't think that would be, a primary issue, but I mean, I wouldn't be able to answer it like with any degree of clarity. So
my feeling is the answer might be no. Like this feels like one of those things where like the audience feels like they know certain things and they're like just kind of using their own logic to put, because of this, therefore this. And I don't think it's that simple. Going to the Max question, like how big of a deal is being on Max for AEW? Like we know being on Netflix is a huge deal for the WWE. Is being on Max going to, in your opinion, like significantly,
I think it's a definite positive. I think it's going to reach people that were never going to watch AEW on cable. That I don't expect this to be the gigantic move that being on Netflix is going to be for WWE.
The subscriber base is entirely.
Yeah, but it's also not nothing though. Like Max is a very healthy service. It certainly, I think more people will now be able to access AEW, but ultimately it's getting those people into the routine of watching it. I don't see any negative to it. I would say that. But.
Just for the basis of comparison. So according to Yahoo, what is it? As of September 30th, Max is outpacing Netflix for subscriber growth, at least for the third quarter of 2024, currently at 110 million global users, Netflix 282 million worldwide users.
Right. Does it have the US number there for Max or just the worldwide number?
I have the global number.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think it's also being able eventually to have the pay-per-views on there, which will be at a time to be determined as well. Like I think anytime you can create more options for people to access your program, I think it's a positive, and they will aggressively promote this. So I could be underselling it. It might be a bigger deal in 18 months time from now. We could look at this as like AEW accessing, it's just so much more accessible through more people getting onto Max, and that's how they are able to follow along with the programming. One more piece of feedback here comes from Sal from California. Overall, this Dynamite had more positives than negatives for me. There were some great matches with Pac and Jay White and Shelton against Fletcher. I thought the video packages for Bandito and Julia Hart were well done. I'm looking forward to seeing both return. On the flip side, the Battle Royal failed to impress. The ending with Cole and O'Reilly winning was a foregone conclusion. MJF's presence on the show via remote pre-tape promos has not impressed me, and I find myself bored with the Cole-MJF rivalry. I'm looking forward to watching the Continental Classic continue, and I think I'll actually tune into Rampage this week for the first time in a long time for Mark Briscoe against Okada. Hope you have a great night. We hope you have a great night, Sal. Thank you very much. There you go. Yeah. One new Rampage viewer.
Thank you. Well, great. Awesome. I might even join you, Sal. So, yeah, thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the people with the super chats as well.
All right. All the world's problems have now been cured. Maybe on Talk we will go through all of the cabinet members. We'll go one by one, and we'll rebook the Trump cabinet.
I think we should have a big discussion about how we would run Canada as the 51st state of the United States.
Oh, yeah. Could be in the near future for all of us. Yeah. I can't wait. Yeah, we're going to start to put tariffs on all of our podcasts as well. We can fight back too, Way. That's it. We are going to close up, but thanks, everyone. The eternal question Way and I have, the ongoing problem, how could we ever condense this show to be 60 minutes? That's impossible, as I have learned over the years. But nonetheless, it's always great quality time with you, the listener. And you can spend more time with us on the Pro Wrestling Cafe.
Beginning of the month right now, so sign up. Actually, if you sign up right now, you're probably going to, most of you, if you sign up on...
You'll get our Wrestle Kingdom coverage.
Yeah. You'll get our Wrestle Kingdom reviews on the 4th and the 5th, so maybe even wait a day if you wanted to. Sure, you get it all for $6, but I'd suggest just signing up for the whole year, okay? You get the best, okay? I'm just gonna say it, the best wrestling podcast that exists out there, and you're gonna get more of it if you sign up into the cafe. Best and worst of show 2024 coming up as a cafe exclusive for us this month. We got a review of Dave Bautista's Knock at the Cabin. Is it the best Dave Bautista acting performance? Controversial Controversy creates cash. That might be a controversial statement, and that's why you want to listen to that podcast, okay?
No, a controversial statement was telling him that
he's peaked.
No, it was well, we don't even know if Guardians of the Galaxy will be a big movie or not. We can't promote it on TV.
ROH Final Battle review coming with Kate and Sino. So, Matt Cardona versus Chris Jericho. We found out the main event, and here are their thoughts on the rest of the show. SmackDown reviews every single Friday. Collision reviews with Kate and Sino every Saturday. And tomorrow, Pollock and Ting talk.
We're going to talk. We're going to meditate. Check in on Thursday show. We have a lot to get off our chest, so tune in for that on Thursday. And coming up this Friday, Neil Flanagan will be in this seat. Well, not this literal seat, but figuratively with Wai Ting to chat about SmackDown.
Double duty for Neil. Jumping from Up Next.
Man is on fire this week. Yeah, he's hopping from NXT to SmackDown. And lots to come this weekend, so keep it locked on postwrestling.com. We are on Blue Sky as well. But at the very least, hit the thumbs up on this video on YouTube. Make us happy. Make us
rich, okay? Because a thumbs up doesn't earn us really money, but it will make us rich in social clout, okay?
Yeah.
The real currency.
Yeah, we don't hold too much social clout, but that is it for us. Good night, everybody. We will talk to you next time.